you can see just what a gigantic mess everything is at the moment. Bits of my car all over it and the garage. What's that shark doing there? Anyway, yeah, it's all a bit just whoa, too much stuff. Anyway, it'll all go back together and look great. Out in the garage, adjusting the push rods for the new cam. It's frankly a really horrible job because you've got to get the preload using tiny little 3/8 nuts and lock nuts on this thing, and one-handed it's a bugger, but we'll show you the process and just how exciting it is. So you can see it's all set up with the degree wheel on the cam, and then we've got the new cam in all looped up, yeah, setting the preload on the lifters. This is the one we're going to be watching, and then we're going to be adjusting that one. I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so here's the theory. As the exhaust valve is opening, just as it starts to open, we adjust the lash on the intake, and then when the intake fully opens and then starts to close, we adjust the lash on the exhaust. So let's do that. We'll rotate this until the exhaust is just starting to open. So we're going to go round, here we go. Exhaust is just starting to open there. You can see it's just coming up on the lobe of the cam. The lights decided to go off because it's run out of battery. Of course it has. So now we're going to adjust the intake. And to do that, we're going to have to first of all de-adjust it, because this has been adjusted for the old cam and lifters. We got new lifters, new cam, so we're going to have to de-adjust. So we're going to undo this lock nut like that. Just get it moving. There we go. Give us a bit of space. Now, I'm going to de-adjust, take the load off of that. That's it wobbling. Now I'm just going to load it up until it's just got a bit of friction on it. There we are. Then I'm going to take the magic pen and we're going to mark where that is just now, because we're going to put a full turn on there. In order to see where the full turn is, we need a mark. Okay, so we're gonna just Put a little clamp on there. And we're going to take a full turn out. And it was just a little bit past there. That was perfect. And then we're going to lock that lock nut. Come on, get on there, little bastard. Jesus. There we are. There we are. Yeah. We got this. Keeping that in the same place. We're going to give it a good tighten up. There we go. And that's that one. Then we're going to rotate the engine again until that one opens and just starts to close. And that one will be on the heel, and we'll adjust that one. And then it's 16 of those, and you're away. Degreeing this cam is proving tricky. We've got a wheel, we've got a dial gauge which is set up as much as I can possibly get it right on the correct angle of that push rod. But the problem is the lifters, because they're not pumped up with oil, the push rod is not moving at the point when the lifter's moving, so I can't measure exactly when it starts to move. So I've made a little piece which slots over the top of that, where the push rod meets the lifter, and that means that when a lifter moves, it moves the push rod at exactly the same point, and therefore we should be able to measure when that push rod's moving 0.05 so that we can get this measured. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. These numbers here. I've checked the intake opens at, first of all, and it's meant to be 3 degrees before top dead center. And at the moment, we've got it at 3.5 degrees after top dead center. So it looks as if the timing gear is going to have to come off, and we're going to have to advance retard, I'll think about that in a minute, by 6 degrees. Just to be double sure, I'm going to check the intake center line figure, and if that's 6 degrees out, then that'll prove that I'm going to have to take the whole thing to bits. First attempt was a cock up, because what I didn't realise was that my lovely spacer that was locking that wasn't locking it, it was moving about. What I need to do is actually adjust that again so that I'm forcing that spacer to be completely rock solid with a push rod, which I can do by just adjusting the push rod so it's pushing down on top of that spacer. And that'll be solid onto the lifter, and then I'll be able to get a more accurate measurement. I couldn't understand why my figures were all over the place. This is what I'm using. Just cut out a piece
And that, hopefully you can see, just slots in there and sits on top of the lifter. And now I'm going to adjust the push rod so that there's no slack, because at the moment we've got slack, and that's what was cocking up the results. So I'm going to adjust this, keeping an eye on the dial gauge to make sure I'm not actually compressing the push rod up the way. I just want that to be snug against this and not add in any additional lift on the dial gauge. So I come round here, I should be able to just gonna unlock this first of all. I've got the dial gauge zeroed. Doing something wrong here, doesn't feel right. Try and go the wrong way, that's what's wrong. That's it. These bloody lock nuts, honestly. Right. Okay. So now I should be able to put a bit of extra tightness on here, keeping an eye on the dial gauge, make sure I'm not pushing the push rod up. I just want to tighten down onto this spacer. Here we go. Yeah. And that's just, it moved a micro hair. So I'm going to call that where we want to be. Let's put a tiny bit of tension on that. Okay, so we've now got zero movement in here. We should get an accurate reading. We've got 50 lift, and that's 50 off the base circle on the intake, and we are reading, and not straight onto that, but we're reading 3 degrees before top dead center, which is what it's meant to be. So now we're going to go around and check 50 the other side of the base circle and see what number we get for that. Should be 35 after bottom dead center or something like that. I'll check. let's find where it's going to be 50 off the base circle. Still going. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. And that is 50. That's 50 off. And we are reading 45 degrees after top dead center. 45 degrees after top dead center.
So those of you watching for the deliberate mistakes will have noticed that I set that up on number 3 cylinder and then couldn't understand the numbers. But of course it's all 90 degrees out on number 3. It was really tight to get into number 1, so I thought I'd check the exhaust on number 3, but that's why the numbers are wrong. So it's 90 degrees out exactly. I'm going to go back, modify the spacer, and check it again on number 1 just to be absolutely double extra certain before I button this up. But I reckon the numbers are spot on. So let's have a go at that.
A little bit hard to see, but I've modified the spacer so that it fits in on that number 1 without hitting anything. So we'll try again. We're back on number 1. Our sneaky wee lock piece. We've got a dial gauge. We are reading 50 off base circle on the exhaust, and that's coming in at 46 before bottom dead center. And if we look here, exhaust opens 48 before bottom dead center, and these figures are plus minus 2 degrees. So I'm going to check the exhaust closes now, which should be at exactly 0. And if that's anything like it, I think we're there. This time we're at 50, and this is on the exhaust close. And we are reading it's about 2 degrees. Now, the figure they're quoting is exhaust closes 0. So, I don't know. Are we 2 degrees out or not? The intake was spot on for the opening. The exhaust was 2 out for the opening. I don't know. I'm going to double check it all.
Check the top dead center with the positive stop method. Putting a stop into the plug hole and then double checking degrees either side of that. And it turns out that in fact it was 1.5 degrees out on my top dead center mark on the dial. And it was in the right direction. So where it was showing opening at 3 degrees before top dead center on the intake, and I was opening at 4. So
that would be right. So the cam's correct. And I hope I never have to do that ever again in my life.